Do you have a paranormal experience you'd like to share with our viewers? Record your story on your phone or write it down and email your video or written account to us at weirdworldstories@gmail.com. A meeting with an extraterrestrial is not always an enlightening or healing experience. And in fact, the advice of UFO researcher B.J. Booth is be careful what you wish for. While inevitably terrifying and life-changing, a UFO encounter can also result in negative long-term after-effects. As part of our Friend or Foe series about our ET visitors, Weird World highlights some of those here. In practicality, there have been some apparently downright hostile acts, seemingly from extraterrestrial beings, documented in various parts of the world. Sometimes it just seems like mistakes have been made by the ETs in their attempts to engage with their human subjects. For example, it appears quite common for the human to be injured during the abduction, particularly if they put up a strong resistance. Usually such injuries are cured quite quickly by the ETs with their superior medical equipment. However, in one account, sent to us by viewer Brenda Butler, the result of one of her several abductions was quite dire. She believes that they were experimenting on her and that they depleted her body of sodium. For a weekend, she suffered with very bad pains in her legs and was seen by doctors multiple times who gave her strong analgesic medication. By the Tuesday morning, when her blood tests returned, her doctor told her that all her sodium had been removed. Brenda then recalled the moment she was on the examination table and heard the being saying that she had tough skin and that they would have to insert the needle to take the liquid. When interviewing witnesses for his book about alien healing, author Preston Dennett made contact with a certified hypnotherapist cum researcher who was working with UFO abductees every day. This person, who requested anonymity, had recorded many cases where the subject was reluctant to report the source of the healing to their doctor. However, they also sensed a more ominous take on the motives of the healers. They were sceptical that these acts of healing are performed out of pure kindness, their chilling conclusion attributing the ET's deeds to a specific agenda that they needed to follow. In fact, the hypnotherapist had not learnt of a single case of the healing being done to help the unwell human. Rather, the ET's attitude is that they have put in a lot of effort on our human race and they are not about to allow us to perish until they have completed their mission for us, whatever that may be. The Mutual UFO Network is the world's largest civilian UFO research organisation, having thousands of members and its own field investigators. Their manual includes a catalogue of the most common medical after-effects of UFO encounters. These include tingling or shock, dizziness, discernible body temperature changes, unexplained joint or muscle stiffness, impaired motor skills such as experiencing spasms or paralysis, eye, ear or nose irritation or sight, hearing and smell impairment, skin burns, rashes, cuts or gouges, headache, loss of appetite, nausea, extreme fatigue or sleep disorder, amongst other possible effects. Preston Dennett adds to this list dehydration, menstrual disturbances, bruises, scars, hair loss, and even a condition resembling radiation sickness, which can result in loss of life. Injuries can be temporary or become chronic illnesses and also impair mental health. An extremely traumatic abduction, which occurred in Stanford, Kentucky in 1976, left all three of the experiencers with negative after-effects. In January of that year, three friends, Louise Smith, Mona Stafford and Elaine Thomas, were driving home from a restaurant where they had been celebrating Mona's 36th birthday and, it's worth noting, had not consumed any alcohol. Just outside Stanford, a bright red object appeared in the sky, which Mona initially thought was an aeroplane on fire. However, as it descended from the right side of the road to just ahead of them, they realised that it was not an aeroplane, but a massive object, larger than, quote, 2 houses. The object halted about 100 yards in front of them, spanning right across the road to both sides, where it rocked back and forth for a few seconds and then moved away to the left. Louise Smith kept driving, but after about a quarter of a mile, a blue light became visible through the rear window of the car. At first thinking it was a highway patrol car with flashing lights, the women soon realised that the flying object had circled back and come up behind them. Suddenly, something seized control of the car, which speeded up dramatically, even when Louise took her foot off the accelerator. The speedometer soon hit 85 miles per hour as Mona Stafford, the front passenger, unsuccessfully tried to help Louise regain control. All the women began to experience a burning sensation in their eyes, and while the ignition lights indicated that the car's engine had stalled, they continued to speed frenetically. They realised that they were now on the outskirts of Houstonville, a full 8 miles away from where they had just been, and incredibly, that an hour and 20 minutes had passed. On arriving at Louise Smith's trailer in Liberty at 1:25 a.m., nearly 1.5 hours late, they found that each of them bore a red mark like a burn on the backs of their necks, as well as burning, irritated eyes. When Louise went into the bathroom and removed her watch to wash her face, she observed that the hands of the watch were spinning at high speed, while the simple act of splashing water on her face caused pain in her hands and face. The women immediately told Louise's neighbour, Mr. Lowell Lee, of their experience, and he had them separately sketch the object they had seen, their drawings later found to be virtually identical. They notified the police and local Navy office, but neither authority showed any interest in their account. In the days to come, Mona Stafford was to seek medical assistance for severe conjunctivitis, while Louise Smith's pet parakeet was now strangely terrified of her and died soon after. Her car also began to develop inexplicable electrical problems. Finally, MUFON and others began to investigate the case, finding that other witnesses had also reported sightings of a UFO around the location on the same night. A Dr. R. Leo Sprinkle of the University of Wyoming flew in and on March 7, 1976, undertook preliminary hypnotic regressions of the 3 women. After all of them easily passed a police lie detector test, more extensive hypnotic regression revealed that during the period of missing time, the 3 women had been taken on board the object they had seen. All 3 described being medically examined by shadowy beings whom they later identified as appearing similar to depictions of aliens. The 3 had been subjected to physical examinations which were sometimes harsh in nature and even essentially torturous. There had been no carnal molestation during the abduction, but the women had been restrained in grueling and humiliating positions. Louise revealed that her exam had taken place on a table, while Elaine was held inside a capsule with a strange-looking noose-like device encircling her neck, which tightened painfully when she tried to speak and impaired her breathing. Mona's examination was in a chair-like device which twisted her feet painfully, then a stool which seemed to undergo quick accelerations. Ending up on a table, she recalled her eyeballs being pulled out of their sockets and placed on each cheek, still connected to her body by arteries and connective tissue. While remaining conscious throughout the entire procedure, she was unable to observe how they performed the surgery, except that some power had simply drawn her eyes out and laid them there. All of the abductees remembered having their bodies scanned and being subjected to instruments which exerted pressure on their limbs. Elaine recalled a tube with a bullet-like tip probing her chest, and also a warm liquid being applied to her face and body, which Mona also recalled. After a short time, the ETs replaced Mona's eyeballs and returned the 3 women to their vehicle. The extreme pain in Mona's eyes persisted, and she also became obsessively fearful about going blind. The burning sensation became so overwhelming that it was her presentation for medical assistance that eventually led to the investigation. As to the appearance of their captors, all three women agreed that their hands looked like jagged wingtips, while Elaine, who recalled the most, stated at some point there were several small figures about 4 feet tall. All stated that the white-clad beings communicated with them by telepathy, not appearing to have mouths. Mona recalled being told that they were very interested in her body and needed to conduct the tests. Nearly 50 years later, while the origin or identity of these ET abductors have never come to light, the women's credibility as witnesses is still regarded with ironclad validity. Unfortunately, there is no indication that the bedside manner of some ETs, like those they encountered, has improved.